All right, so to create a virtual network, why are we creating a virtual network? Well, a virtual network is going to act as our, I guess you could say, as a switch, right? Because you may want to put one virtual machine on on one network. Let's say we get into, which we will eventually. Let's say we're getting into making a domain controller, right? So you may have multiple domain controllers, but you can have them one domain controller in this virtual network, and it controls, manages whatever that network, and then you have another domain, another network. So you can actually play around with the different virtual networks, and it keeps your machines isolated to a particular network. So creating a VNet is very easy. You just type it in virtual network and virtual networks, not virtual networks classic, but we're looking for virtual network. Virtual network classic is something else. It's more of like an on premises. You're trying to replicate uh, your network environment on a cloud exactly, and that's when you use virtual network classic. But as you can see, I've already made a VNet, but let's create one, right? So you create a virtual network, and this is the network that you're making that the next computers that we make is all going to be a part of this virtual network. When you create a virtual machine, it gives you the option to create a virtual network while in that process, but you can also choose from an already created virtual network. And I always felt that process a little bit better because if you make your own virtual network yourself, then you know it. Then you know exactly how your IP scheme is set up, and then you know how your naming conventions and everything like that. So again, same steps for making any new resource. This resource we're making a virtual network. You pick your subscription, which I only have one, and then you pick the resource group. If you don't have a resource group or all the ones that's on your list is not ones you want, you can go to create a new one and it will automatically create a new resource group for you. And then if I create new, you can then it's gonna, hey, what name do you want this resource group? I'm gonna say new RG, one, right? I'm not gonna make it because I already have one, but that's it's simple as that. You click OK, and it's gonna say new to indicate that this is a new one and not one that you already made, and that's the name that you picked, new RG1. I don't want that. I want resource group, group one resource group. All right. So now I'm a virtual network name, my VNet, right? My VNet, because I've been using underscore, so I'm gonna keep using my VNet one, right? And you can have it like that. And then region, I'm gonna keep mine at East US because that's where my resource group is. It's not necessary, but I think it is. You have to have it in the same region as your resource group. I think I could be incorrect on that one. So I say East. East isn't the most affordable. Different regions have different prices. So if I go back, so if I go to basics, it says region, and I can pick which region I want it in. And these are all the regions that Azure has, I guess you could say, network operating centers at, NOCs at. And as you can see, you can put it anywhere that's on this list, almost anywhere in the world: Europe, Middle East, Asia, South America, and of course the US, right? East, West, and South. South Central, in my opinion, has had the cheapest, most affordable virtual machine. So let's say in the East, which I'm using now, it may cost to run my Windows. It's going to tell us as we get to that stage, but it may cost me in the East to run that same virtual machine for, let's say $100 a month. But I can go to South Central, I may pay $85 a month, and it can be a great difference. So of course the prices fluctuate over time, but that's just the overall gist of how or which region you want to choose. And then you're gonna click not reviewing and create, but next for security. Azure Bastion. Azure Bastion is basically RDP services, but it's over the web, right? So instead of you opening up your MSTSC, your remote desktop on your computer, RDP, and how you put the name in, and your, or in this case, it would be a public IP address that our virtual machine would get, and it'll be, 10 dot or whatever, public IP stuff. Uh, Basically, you're doing that in the web. So they Azure Bastion lets you connect or RDP to a client if you don't have RDP on your computer, on your that specific device, right? Because let's say I'm on a tablet and I don't have remote desktop on my tablet, but I got a web browser, so I can use that web browser and use Azure Bastion in that web browser to RDP, and I'll show you how it looks later on. All right, so we don't want any security. Now we're going to pick for our virtual network, we're going to pick our IP scheme. It gives us a default scheme of 10.0.0.0 to 255, which is a lot, obviously. I don't really need that many, but I'm going to leave it to default for the sake of the video. Tags, again, you can choose tags to identify uh, what you want to tag your resources with. Like this is for testing, so we can say I'm gonna say reason, right? And it's gonna be testing or whatever. So these are just different ways to kind of tag your resources so you can go back and find them a lot easier later on. So right now, uh, I'm not doing any tags or anything like that. Let me delete that. And so we're going to go to review and create, running validation again, of course, to make sure we did enter all the information in. And the virtual network is ready to be created. I'm not going to create it because I already have one.